You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. So, good evening, good morning, good night to all of us, all of you that are on the continent and in the diaspora and across Africa. Today, we welcome you on the Pan-African Daily TV after being absent for a couple of days, and I hope all of us are doing well. Today, we want to talk about a very crucial and one of the top trending topics on the continent of Africa. And I know the diaspora has been very responsive on this issue. Recently, we heard about the coup in Mali, in Guinea, and today we're talking about Burkina Faso and Sudan. And Africans are asking, what is the problem? What is going on? Of course, a lot of the comments that we've been having on this topic, it has been a situation of this should have happened long ago, even after the creation of the Organization of the African Unity, or OAU. I mean, this is what should have happened, that France is one of the biggest challenge on the continent of Africa, particularly in Francophone speaking African countries. And so, you know, Africans on the continent and in the diaspora, everybody is kind of like jubilating these military takeovers in all these French speaking African countries. And like everyone is just saying, France, you have to pack and go, pack and leave Africa. But of course, we also hear, particularly the other militaries that were on the continent, on the ground, stationed on the French-speaking part of Africa. We had some military generals, like the one from US, said, "Oh, this is a problem that is being caused by Russia." And he also went ahead when he gave that announcement on Voice of Africa to say, you know, Russia is even going to be the worst partner to Africa if Africa would think that that's the solution, because all the military takeovers that are happening in these countries is being backed up by Russia. How far? How sure? We are here to learn and to listen. The whole of this week, we're going to be getting experts on this topic, the recent uprising and the military takeover in the Francophone African countries. And some even say, you know, colonial France, Africa, which is the CFA, representing the CFA, the currency that is being used in this region, must quit immediately and give way for Africa to grow. Now, but we also know that even this colonel said in his announcement, like, one of the greatest enemies of Africa, or the threat to Africa, should not even be France, it should be China. Okay. I mean, so the question is, like, who owns Africa? Nobody talks about Africans owning their continent and taking responsibility for everything that is going on. What we hear is France is the problem. France is the problem. I mean, it's somewhere like, France, how? Starting from the currency, starting from, you know, all the corruption, and it's starting from all the agendas that some even refer the leaders of African countries in these African countries as puppet of the West. Actually, they mean puppets of France. Okay. So we want to find out, want to get a conversation about the stories, want to hear from experts, you know, educating us. This is something that has even should have happened long ago. And we have our elder, a professor here, an expert here, Professor Joomay Fayee, whom all of us know, you know, the voice of the Pan-African Federalist movement that is saying, yes, if we had advocated like the agenda that we're putting up for one Africa state, you know, this wouldn't even have been a problem. But the next questions that Africans are busy asking is, which country is going to be next after Burkina Faso. So I get back to the studio to greet you, my dear able expert. Now you see all the recent happenings. What is your take on that? What is actually happening? What should Africans know? And what do you think would happen next after Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Sudan? I mean, what are the differences? What should have happened long ago? What is going to happen next? What can Africans be rejoicing, particularly when it has to do with the Pan African Federalist movement? The solution that you actually were bringing up with your organization spearheading and said, this is the time. Should we be dancing? Should we think it's going to get over soon? Or if we replace France with Russia, what is going to be the impact? When is Africa going to take control over Africa and its resources? Over to you, Elder Joomay.
Greetings, Dr. Tata. Thank you again for having me impromptu in your show. But as I told you, for you, I'm always ready whenever you need me to chime in and just share what I think is the reality. You know, I thank you, your listeners. This is a very good place. That you've created for Africans to engage in discourse, because prior to change, discourse has to happen. And it
Correct.
is venues like this that we have to use in order to have a proper discourse on exactly where we're going, how we're going to get to where we're going. I just wanted to stun you a little bit here. You said friends is the biggest challenge. I actually go against that thinking. Our biggest challenge as Africans is our resistance to political unity. After we have been told many a time, demonstration from Nkrumah, Sheikh Anta Diop, Barthélemy Boganda, and Edem Kodjo, I mean, you name them, after, and lately in Nyerere, without unity, there is no future for us. Our resistance, Garvey started in 1920, actually. Our resistance to unity, and the easiness to divide us, to conquer us, that is our biggest challenge as Africans.
Okay.
I tell my students and people that I work with, 75% of the responsibility of the situation in which we are today is on us. Only 25% is on France, Germany, England, Western Europe in particular, and the international lending institution, the Bretton Woods institution like World Bank, IMF, and all of that. Only 25% of that responsibility. Look hard, and you will see that is it.
Yes.
So it is dependent on us. What course are we going to take? It depends completely on us. We don't want an Africa for China. We don't want an Africa for Russia. We don't want an Africa for France or anybody. We want an African for Africans, by Africans for Africans. That's what we want. And it is within our capacity to do so. It's just that we are so, sucked into this individualism, into the survival mode. Every one of us, we are so stuck into the survival mode that we don't look at tomorrow. We only look at today. How can I, even our countries are fighting over this between these institutions. How am I going to, get the markets? How am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? And we don't realize that it is not by fighting for survival that you build a tomorrow that is prosperous for your children.
Absolutely.
It is for planning tomorrow, sacrificing today, that you build a better future for you tomorrow. So the biggest challenge is us Africans, my sister. And the shows like you, people who listen, we need to really do a huge introspection in us, in order to say, okay, what can I do? What can we do? Now, what is going on all over Africa? There are a combination of couple of things, a major couple of things. The number one thing is what we call in economics demographic dividend, meaning the number of young people who come into the workplace, in the marketplace every year. How many is it? What is that? That's called the demographic dividend. You know, the other element is also what we call the new scramble for Africa. Those
Correct.
two, are deadly weapon. Because the youth in Africa, whether it is in Ethiopia, in Senegal, or in Mali, and Burkina Faso, and all of that stuff, and even in Arab countries, we, sorry, we don't have the capacity to absorb them, that workforce that is coming into the market. We can't. So the youth is desperate, is restless. It doesn't know what to do. It wants a job. It cannot get a job. And 10 years ago, we started to discuss this issue as political scientists and others, this is a bomb for Africa, or it could be a blessing for Africa.
Correct.
If you don't use the demographic dividend, if this youth unemployed coming into the market looking for job is desperate, it could go, you have social trouble. And the terrorists are there recruiting these people. They give you money, these groups, and tell you, okay, go fight. If you die, you go to paradise. You are desperate. You don't know no prospect for the future. What are you going to do? You're not going to sit home. You're going to go and get $25,000 or something, and get involved. There, so there you have the groups in the Sahara. At the same time, you are at home restless. Opposition is there creating the flame, and like in Mali, they went into rally. In Burkina Faso, in Guinea, for example, the power, the governance, for different situations, because the reason for Mali, for Guinea, for that the militaries are giving is different, but all of it leads to one thing, the restlessness of our youth, the
Correct.
lack of opportunity for our youth, which these countries cannot satisfy. This is why they call them non-viable countries. And they were specifically designed not to be able to satisfy their people, specifically designed in that way during independence time. So, what exactly is happening in Burkina Faso? It's terrorism that has been the spark, because the militaries are tired of dying, according to what they say, without proper funding of the government. But the reality is that the government don't have more than it's already giving, and that's the problem. So it becomes an issue of the non-viability of the Burkina Faso state. Mali, it started with in the elections. There was a contest in the elections, and then the power, the Supreme Court kind of ruled in favor of the political party or the president's party. That gets the opposition angry, and then with the restlessness of the youth, they use the restlessness of the youth to remobilize them, and then went on the street and demanded for the resignation of the president. Instead of a resignation of the president, what they had was the military taking power. In Guinea, it came from elections that were, a third mandate of a man who many of us really were looking at as an idol when we were growing up. He was, a, a revolutionary as you could get them. A member of the FANF, Fédération des étudiants d'Afrique Noire en France, which was the leading student body for the independence in Africa. So all of this, he came to power and get, kind of like drunk with power and wanted to continue to stay in power, because of many reasons that we don't have time to go. So, but if you look at it, the common denominator of all is the youth, anyone who with, even in Senegal, we had an issue with the demographic dividend when one of the opposition leaders was accused of raping a girl, and then there was some attempt to arrest him and all of that, and then the youth got up, and then start to burn everything because they are restless. They have no opportunity. So the fundamental issue here, Dr. Tata, is the question to answer is, how do we, deal with demographic dividend, which is the excess of labor force coming into the market, that we cannot employ, or at least we have problem employing. So that is what exactly, in my opinion, the question. And the other part of the debate, I think that, and we need to go back to, is that the need for a systemic change. You see, for many years now, we have been kind of caught into a systemic reform debate, and we could come back to that a little bit for me to be a little bit clearer. So what we need is indeed to really reorient the debate from systemic reform, which is about good governance and all of that, to a systemic change, which is the end of neocolonialism, the end of foreign domination of our countries, and the beginning of prosperity.
Okay. It's very interesting what you say, and I think that should be something that we need to actually expand on. Because this idea of always France is the problem kind of like shift the responsibility that we should be working on ourselves, to always put the blames, which we already know. And so when you say one of the major issues is the resistance of Africans to its unity.
Yes, it is.
What should Africans be doing? The more we unite, the more we don't have France or any other foreign partner as a dominance on the continent or for Africans, isn't it?
Let me just tell you one thing, Susan. Okay, I think that I tried to explain this sovereignty in the show once. I don't know if I did a good job or not, but you see,
you did. You're always doing an amazing job, and thank you for even just coming spontaneously today.
Sovereignty is what you say. Sovereignty is different from independence. Independence means that you are recognized as an entity, as a sovereign, supposed to be, quote unquote, whatever the amount of sovereignty you have, as an independent entity by international law. That's what it means, And the other part of it is also the liberty to choose policies, to produce policies, meaning like plans of development, whatever you kind of call it, in any field, economics, social, and all that, So the liberty to exist on, I mean, the liberty to choose these policies and the right to exist as an entity on the international scene is what we call independence. That's what our countries gained in the 1960s wave of independence. That is to be differentiated with sovereignty. Sovereignty has not only that part, but an extremely important part, which is called the wherewithal to implement those policies. The wherewithal, the capacity, the power, capacity to implement the policy that you choose, even if everybody else is against you, without asking for the support of international committee or anybody else. Our countries don't have that portion of their sovereignty. They have, they depend on France, they depend on the IMF, they depend on Britain, they depend on the international China in order to implement these policies. This is what in political science we call negative sovereignty. You see, the problem with that, Susan, is that, you see, a country is like a store, like a shop. like a business. Okay, a
Mm-hmm.
country is exactly just like a business. You have incomes coming, and you have expenditures that are linked to that. You know,
Sure.
income for a country are tax and custom fees and all of that stuff. Okay, but if the country, the income, what is coming in, is not enough to face what is going out, you have what we call a chronic fiscal deficit. Since countries don't declare bankruptcy, they go to somebody else, to get them to bail them out. And how do you bail somebody out? By making them your neo-colony. As simple as that, We are neo-colonies, and this was what France had planned all along. Britain also. They had planned when we wanted, for example, the Central African unity with Boganda, or the West African unity with Senghor and Modibo Keïta. France destroyed it and created small countries here and there, because they know that these countries will not be able to face their responsibility of sovereignty. So they will be coming back to France and asking France to patch up, to pay for parts of the budget, the budget that they cannot pay, their fiscal deficit. So that will make them dependent on France, because France could decide at any time that if you don't do what I want to do, then I will stop giving you money, so you won't be able to pay your administration or your military. And if you don't pay the military, they overthrow you. So we are caught into that, into that game. I mean, the second portion of it also, is that we don't have, those countries are so small in a way that we don't have a fiscal base, enough to create enough money for us to have a positive fiscal balance, like be able to face our charges. So that was when we were being given independence, that was prepared already for us to become neo-colonies. Okay. Now, what could be done is that these cumbersome portions of sovereignty, and this is what Krumah, Job, and all of them have said before, that make them forced to go and look for patches in their budgetary needs. They could mutualize them with the other African countries, and then the cost will be completely reduced to almost nothing. The cost of governance will be reduced dramatically. We will have one army. You won't need to have 50 embassies here in the UN, at the UN. You have only one big embassy. You will not need to have 35 embassies in France, or you will have only one. The military, you will have much better equipment, because you will have enormous amount of money that could be put into research and stuff, and get you armament that are adapted to the terrain in Africa and all of that stuff. You will be able to face all of that. You will be able to. The second part of this is the issue with currency, the CFA. A lot of people talk about the CFA. They talk about the CFA left and right. Well, we are the reason why there is a CFA. It's not France. France isn't running after us. We are renting. Prior, we were renting the French franc in order to do international commerce. We were renters. And France created a currency that we could use domestically, locally, which we cannot use on the international market, because they didn't want to make their money available to us directly on the, just like that. And we pay a certain rent in order to be able to use that money. Prior, it was, first of all, the rent is not just money. Initially, it was that 50% or more of your foreign currency have to come to the Trésor de France. A certain portion of it has to stay in France. You have to pay, and that was the rental price we were paying in order to be able to do business in Iran. The reason why we were doing that, because money, Dr. Susan, is a subjective value. Since the end of the gold standard, money has become a subjective value, meaning it's only the credibility of the country that give value to money. If you take the money of Cameroon and you wanted to commerce with China, they will refuse because they say, oh, there is not enough, Cameroon is not credible enough, or Senegal, or Guinea-Bissau, or so. So what is the way to go around that is to grant somebody else's money and be able to do. But if we have come together and mutualize ourselves this portion of sovereignty, meaning creating a federal government, the United African States will have the credibility to have its own currency and won't need to rent somebody else's currency in order to do international commerce. So all of these are reasons for neocolonialism. People just talk and talk and talk. They don't realize, they don't do the basic necessary study or analysis or retrospect in order to understand exactly what is going on here, But that's the problem. So this is why I said in the beginning of the show that the challenge is not France. The challenge is us.
Correct.
And
yes.
worse, Dr. Tata, what is happening is that France, China today, all of them are sitting in the brains of our beautiful minds. The IMF, just like Steve Biko once said, the most potent weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most beautiful minds of Africa today are caught into repeating like parrots what the West want them to repeat, which is governance. We have to do better governance. We have to do democratization. We have to fight corruption. Nonsense. All that is nonsense. Because all that discourse is a systemic reform debate. All that is about reforming a system, the neo-colonial system. Instead of talking like Jacques Ante Diop of them, like Nkrumah of them, like Frantz Fanon, even Jean-Paul Sartre, like Walter Rodney, instead of talking like that, saying that neo-colonialism has to end, we're talking about making neo-colonialism better. What kind of nonsense is that? You cannot develop under neo-colonialism. Doesn't matter how better you make it, it will still be a neo-colonial system. And what we call in economy, the surplus value of your national production will always go up. Since the surplus value is always going out, development is impossible. You are left with dead capital, which is the capital to buy cars, to buy houses, to buy this and not to build factories, not to invest in the market. So all of this, we are in a bad shape, I have to say, and this is why on my side, I am engaged personally. This is not part of the PAF, African Federalist Movement, what we call the New African Development School of Thought, the New African Development School of Thought,
New African, African Development School of Thought.
School of Thought, which is founded on rejecting reform, systemic reform, getting out of the what the West want us to talk about, but talk about what we need to talk about, which is systemic reform. Systemic reform, end of neo-colonialism, and this could be done peacefully because we already have the portion of sovereignty we need in order to move in that direction. And history is what they say, the oracle of tomorrow. That's what the Americans did. 1783 in Paris, they get their independence from Britain. 1783, the Paris Treaty, 1787, they used that sort of kind of half sovereignty they have and created the United States of America by voluntarily surrendering portions of their sovereignty to a federal government they created by themselves. And making it easy and possible for states like New Jersey, state like Connecticut, state like Rhode Island, state like Virginia today, New Hampshire and others to be able to exist, supported by the massive economy of states like California, New York, Massachusetts, Texas, and others, That's what they did. That's what they did. They understood that from the beginning, And this is what our problem is as Africans. We have, and Nkrumah, when he came here, he learned that. Garvey, he learned that here. They knew exactly what the Americans did. This is what we need to do too. And they call our people on it, But, so the challenge is us. We have to look into us, the solutions. Solutions to African problem will be from Africans. See, France is right to do what it's doing. Let me repeat that. The imperialists are right to do what they are doing. I am not saying that this is, but they are fighting for their people in order for their people to attain a certain standard of living. That's what those politicians are. We have to do the same thing. Instead of sitting there and crying and condemning them, and this and that, those nonsense, we have to sit down and say, hey, these are just people like us. These are people like us. They are not, extraterrestrial. They don't have capacities we don't have, So let's look into us what we could do in order to get out of this quagmire, So that's So these military coups that you're seeing in Africa today, these are all symptoms of the non-viability of our states. And the only way to get out of this situation, the only way is to make this state viable parts of a federal government of the United African States, or whatever you want to call it, or whoever want to call it.
But can you just repeat that again? You said these are symptoms of the viable or the vulnerability of our state, isn't it?
It is. It's all part of the vulnerability because a coup d'etat, a coup d'etat is based because they are vulnerable. A couple of 20 militaries could come up, get up and say, oh yeah, let's go take power today. And then they take it. Try to get 20 militaries to come to do that here in the US and you will see what will happen to them. Try to get 100 military, 1,000 military try to take power here in the US and you will see what happened to them. They can't do it. But 20 militaries could take power in Cameroon, easy. 20 militaries because these states are vulnerable, vulnerable, and a gang of 20, 30, 40, depending, could take them easily, and this, but the reality is that these people don't just get up. They get up because underneath there is discontent, desperation of the people. This is why whenever you have a coup d'etat in Africa, in many times you see people coming out of the city, yeah, the liberators have come. And then 3 years later, they get overthrown. The same people, yeah, because the desperation that we are in, the non-viability,
absolute,
the lack of opportunities, the lack of liberty, security, like the case of Burkina Faso, this state cannot provide us with the security we need. It's not possible, So terrorists could come and kill a village and go, and friends who created this state so that they could be like this, come and look like, oh yeah, we're saving you, when in fact, in reality, they are ascertaining their neocolonialist power on us, because they don't send their militaries to help Mali or to help us for free. It's money of the French taxpayers. What are they doing it for? They're doing it for something in return, and that's us maintaining Bolloré, Bolloré, a French person, as the owner of all the ports in West Africa, all the ports, from Cameroon to Dakar, from Congo to he owns all the ports. One person, one French person, I mean, that's what we pay in return, And all of the patches that we have in our budget because of our chronic fiscal deficit, that's what we pay in return, you know?
Yes, it is. It is. I like the conversation, and I know the guests are really enjoying it as well. Not just enjoying, it is sad. Most of them are saying, but it's a fact. It is a fact that, it is upon us. And what I truly like is what you talked about, our challenge, which we kind of like deviate it to put it on others. The challenge that we have is the resistance to our unity. Of course, I've taken that like a quote to put it under your series that you'll be treating with us, the New African Development School of Thought, but particularly political thought. Because we can talk about culture, we know it already, spirituality, we have those series going out here, even history, right? But the political thought of neocolonialism and imperialism is what we're trying to integrate. And you, like the expert on that topic, to come once in a week to treat this topic with us, actually, because like you said, there's no curriculum in any African school that taught us about this, even the independence and the post-independence, and even what we're still going through now. So I'm very happy that you actually are willing to treat this topic with us, because we know we are not a media, we are not a mainstream media. We are a new school of thought, or the Kemetic University, as a lot of people refer to. So we bring our experts in all their competencies to actually, teach us what we need to know, or talk and hold a conversation and share stories of the past and paving the way to the future. Now, this issue that you are talking about, I'll still come back to that. Yes, it is because of the resistance of our unity, but isn't it also that it is possible that this government or these leaders have actually understood, this kind of game, and if they can even put up a resistance to say, you know what, yes, we know that we have to deal with our own issues, but you know what, just go first, leave us alone, and then we will sit on the table and try to figure out for ourselves. Do you see that happening after this takeovers?
No, sovereignty is not negotiated. Power, you don't negotiate power. You take it. You take
No,
power, man.
I'm not talking, no, sorry, probably I put it different. I'm not
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about France. I'm just like amongst us as Africans, like the first
Oh,
thing is chase away the enemy, and then
mhm.
we can now see, I mean, like countries in ourselves, because
Absolutely.
like you said, even if they take over one country, it is not a solution if we are not united. That's what you mean,
Absolutely.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one country won't do it. See, you have to create, international relations is about competition. You know, the ABC of international relation courses is competition. You compete on the international market, which is ruthless. There's no friend. Countries don't have souls, like you. They don't have like they don't say, "Oh God, what I did is so bad." They don't. Countries don't regret. You know, countries are callous. You know, and De Gaulle tried to teach that to our leaders, tell them that France doesn't have enemy, it only has interest. De Gaulle, everyone knows that De Gaulle said that many times, La France n'a pas des amis, elle a des intérêts. France doesn't have no friends. Countries, it's not only France, all countries. So, it's power that talks to power.
Correct.
If you are in the weakness, you get told to do. If you have power, you negotiate on what you guys should be doing, what should be the basis of your relation. But the one who is more powerful dictate always what are the treaties, how you interact with them. Okay, especially if they help you bail you out because of your fiscal deficit. So the issue, Susan, and this is one thing. It's not about African leaders. You see, the problem is not the African leaders. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And the problem is the system in itself, the system of neocolonialism. We have to address the system. because it doesn't matter who you will put in power, they will be confronted with the same exact reality. The case of
Correct.
Senegal is telling. You know, the PS was in power for 40 years. We, defeated the PS. Abdullah would come, everyone was like, after the honeymoon was gone, everyone realized that he cannot address the problem of Senegalese, and everyone was angry at him. He will become unpopular. And then today, Macky Sall, the same thing. It's a systemic issue. It is not by by touching parts, and here you have to change the system, because if you don't change the system, what we call in economy the surplus value of the economy will not stay with us. It will go over there, to France, to England, to America, to China, to Japan. That surplus value is what creates development. Because the rest is called in economy dead capital. That's what you use to buy food, to buy house, to be able to survive, to produce. Neocolonialism create the condition for surplus value of a country not to stay in the country, but to go outside of that country in favor of the neocolonial system. And I'll tell you, it is, if you talk about France, it's not France who is only benefiting from Senegal. England, because they have these businesses, international businesses, which buy shares among each other. You exploit Senegal, I will be the front store in Senegal, you will be the front store in Namibia, I would be the front store. Even though the Chinese and who look so different than the American, they all have the same kind of big system from which capital comes from, and this is where surplus value goes to, of our exploitation. And and this is, if you look, I mean, this is a little bit, if you go back into how colonization was done, it's exactly the same. You realize that these people, even though they look, outside completely against each other, they do know that they have at certain point the same interest. And this is what the whole idea of the Berlin Conference was, in a way,
We are breaking the internet. I don't know, it can never be from or from your side, but we just know that there's some interaction, and I want to appeal on the audience to stay very, very focused on what he's saying. It doesn't matter whether it's going to be a crap network or an internet issue out here. The most important thing is the education and the information that we're getting from here, or that you want to actually achieve by listening to it. Pay attention to it. It might be corrupt, but you are still going to share it over and over. And we're rounding up the show because Elder Professor Joomay is here just for an hour. I would open up the lines when he leaves to take some few questions. But tomorrow we'll be getting Al Wahab Farouk on this topic live from Ghana. And he actually would be going in the focus of analyzing how the systems came into place. But one thing that you cannot live here without learning is the fact we as Africans are responsible 70% to what is going on the continent, and partners, foreign partners or colonial masters are responsible for 25%. And the reason is just because we are resistant to unite. We are resisting to become one country, one people, one nation, one currency, one currency and passport and stuff like that. Until we get to that, Professor Joomay said we're going to stay on a survival mode, and that could be very, very delicate to the independence of Africa. And he said something that we need to pay attention, and he's going to be treating these topics with us on his series called the New African Development School of Thought, politically and economic, what we should be doing. He said there's a difference between independence and sovereignty. I don't want to go into that details because this is what he's going to take from the ABC chatter to break it down to us, like he said. But the one thing that I want us to understand is, he said, what is going on now with this military takeover? Don't just be so excited, okay? Because we see people jubilating and social media is booming about that. No, it is a symptom of a weak, because we say vulnerable, it could be interpreted differently. It is a system of a weak, it's a symptom, sorry, of a weak system. And what he said, again, I'm just stressing the key points. If I'm wrong, he's going to correct me before he leaves from here. He said, these are the symptoms of a weak African system. And meaning the idea of neocolonization or imperialism was not, it didn't just happen overnight. They actually put the system into place. And the
Absolutely.
system was, number one, divide the countries, chop them into pieces, and make them
Absolutely.
compete against
Absolutely.
each other. If
Absolutely.
not, we'll not be having different military station in any
Mm,
country to say, what is the military doing there? That's the questions
mm,
Africans are waiting. Because,
absolutely.
oh, Uganda and Kenya could get into conflict, Mali and Burkina Faso or Cameroon could get into conflict. And the question is, do we really need that? Had we ever
Abs-
needed that? Did we ever go
Absolutely.
into
Absolutely.
conflicts where we say we need this kind of stationary militaries? Even if we
Mm,
have, what about our own self to discipline
absolutely.
ourselves? So I think
Absolutely.
those are
And
some of the very fundamental
I just wanted to add a
yes.
little bit here because you see, I always wondered when I was as a student younger, why is Nigeria not developing? It's just kind of mind-boggling. Why is Nigeria in such a mess? Why is it, why isn't it Nigeria like California or Germany? Because it has more resources than them, has more people, a bigger market. Because if it's resources and market that create wealth, how come that Nigeria isn't developing? It has always been a question until one day I realized, learning about social capital, I realized, that's the issue there. The British made sure that Nigeria social capital is equal to zero before they left by using the Igbo, the Yoruba, and the House of Fulani division.
Mm,
Development is only possible. Let's say, see, development is equal to resources, time, social capital.
mm,
The closer social capital is equal to zero, the less possible. The more, however many resources you put there, the zero, the other side of the multiplication will make it close to zero. This is what the issue in Nigeria is, and that's what they wanted to do. That's what they did in India in the beginning. Luckily for them, there was Nehru. They tried to do it in Ghana. Luckily, I mean, Kwame Nkrumah resisted. Nigeria, they succeeded. And this is why the African giant is looking like a baby, and it seems to be, still in its diapers in terms of development. You know, so all of these, we Africans need to think about these things, and put the
mm,
discourse in a direction where we want it to be, analyzing these factors, because nothing is done, haphazardly from these colonialists. Nothing. Everything is planned far ahead and implemented, you know. And you're talking about, let's say, governance and all of that stuff. I mean, it just, we will have the time to come back on this, but there is a history of the West telling us this is what you should see as a priority. And the enablers of the message, of that message of the West, is the African academics. And this is why I said in the beginning, the West is sitting on the heads of our beautiful mind. And as
mm,
Biko said, the most potent weapon in the arms, in the hands of the oppressor, is the mind of the oppressed. The mind of Africa is those beautiful minds who have learned from the Western school. These are people that we
mm.
go to, doctor this, doctor that, and all of that stuff. And these people are the ones who are telling us, giving us the wrong solutions, because they
Absolutely.
just reporting like terror what the West asked them, told them. an example clear for you to, was the theory of nation building, in the early years of independence, nation building, the theory of the big man. We have to have one political party, in the country, and one strong man in order to tie all of these ethnic groups together to become a country. There is nothing further from the truth than that. But African academics ate it like it was like ice cream, and then regurgitated and put it back to their people, and that's it. We're done. And then that was not only, and we will talk about it maybe another time. There are repeatedly, you know, and it's and this new African school of thought on African development will be revisiting all of these ideas, all of these. We have to reorient the debate from our perspective as Africans, not from what the West tell us should be our perspective. You don't know my house and you're telling me this is how I should clean it. you know you know and I believe you. You never set foot on my house, and you're telling me, "Oh yeah, I tell you how to clean it." Well, I should question that a little bit.
Anyway, as a matter of fact, okay, let's just even say out of generosity and because we're living in a world system, you can also still tell me how to clean my house, but do you need to get involved and I have to pay for what you're telling me? It's exactly what the France CFA is doing to African states that are still using that currency, and a lot of people keep talking about it. Like they take you and then resell you to you,
Yeah.
and that's so insane. I mean, we've been following up a conversation on Radio Sud en France, mais ils ont parlé de tout ça. Pourquoi la monnaie est aussi faible que ça? Et il s'agit justement parce que c'est l'argent qui a été diminué, mais encore revendre aux
Revendu.
Africains. Like we
Absolument.
take your money and then
Yeah.
repackage it, even
Yeah.
devalue it, and then
Yeah.
resell it to you. I mean, that's the most
Absolutely.
insane thing that can
Absolutely.
happen
Well, we have
right
to
now.
get out of
And
the
I
need
think,
to rent. We have to get out of the need to rent the French francs or somebody else's currency
correct.
in order to do commerce internationally. We have to find way of getting out of that
Is it
renters
possible
mode.
that under this new African, yeah, this call, we're going to be talking about the currencies and the advantages and even how it came into creation, isn't it? Because sometimes when we just sit and say, oh, we need a one currency and stuff like that, Africans or people that are not actually expert in that topic don't
Absolutely.
actually get the basics why and
Absolutely.
how even it was created and for what purpose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, yes, there will be,
Good.
all topics will be addressed in that school. So, all topics, culture,
Yes.
economy, philosophy, all art, everything, we have to determine what is beautiful for us, what is, whatever. You know,
Correct.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
very much, Professor Joomay. I know that
yeah.
you're running out to another session right now. Thank you so
Absolutely,
very much.
absolutely.
Of course, we'll be having, yes. What is the last thing you want us to know? Because I know I'll only have you again next week, because the whole of this week, yeah, we're going to be having the celebration of Dr. Leona Jeffries. Definitely, I will send you an invitation on that. It's going to be Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our able legendary
Yes,
professor, historian, and
yes.
the
He's my big
greatest
brother.
liberation fighter, just
Uh,
clocked 85 years and is still
Absolutely,
looking very powerful and even
absolutely.
more stronger, just like Reverend Dr. Ninana said. And so we want to share the story of this
Uh, uh,
huge
uh,
and this big, big
Absolutely,
legendary Dr. Leonard
absolutely.
Jeffries on Fridays. I hope all of you are going to tune in and to wish our legend. Like we say most of the
I
time,
will,
should
I
we
will, I
celebrate
will
only
come in.
after the transit?
Absolutely,
No, we have to celebrate now, isn't it?
absolutely. Well, the thing I would want to say for the end is that let us start thinking of systemic change. Abana, systemic
Yes.
reform. Let's turn our back to systemic reform. Good governance, better democracy, fighting against corruption is the wrong fight for us. those are not what are threatening our own very existence. What is threatening our existence as Africans is a deficit of sovereignty and the control of our destiny by foreign powers. Not how corrupt our leaders are, not how undemocratic they are. That's not what is our problem. Our threat, our biggest threat is the people who are sucking life out of us, you know, in and out, in and out, in and out, and making us into survivalist animals almost. So let's talk about systemic reform. Let's turn our back to systemic reform and really reflect on systemic revamping and of neocolonialism. End of neocolonialism in all its forms. Thank you, my sister. And thank you to your auditors.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you also. And one last thing that we want to give to you, because we'll be hosting this series every Tuesday, like we just started already today. So you're going to put up the curriculum on how we have to orientate. I mean, we're getting into that action phase where Professor James and all of you have been saying now it's over. We need to get now into the action phase. And so we're putting all the series, the curriculum details, which professor comes on every time on Tuesday and on what topic. All in the need to redress the systematic on the ground by educating ourselves to say one Africa for Africans worldwide. Is that so simple? And is that so easy? If in the past we made a lot of mistakes, now is the time for us to correct it. There is no reason for us to disagree without even agreeing on a way forward, isn't it? Yes.
I mean, we all agree that we need to survive. So let's find out how to survive.
Yeah.
You know, whatever we could be different on the other side, that's fine. But we all agree that on the need of us to survive. So, you know. And these militaries are
we need to first of all
these
survive.
military calls are wake-up calls for us. Thank you, my sister.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. Thank you for being here. And yes, we see us on Tuesday. No, on Friday on Dr. Jeffrey's birthday. Okay. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
We truly appreciate your attention of being here with us for this 1 hour. And of course, we're going to make things really snappy. So I'm opening up the lines. If you have a question or a feedback on the conversation we just had now, please, I'm taking 3 calls. And these 3 calls have to be as soon as quick as possible. If I don't get any call coming from your part, then it means we all are satisfied with the conversation of tonight. And then we will be looking forward to continue the conversation on this same topic. What is happening and how is this causing an effect? You know, some kind of like a spilled over effect. We already learned it tonight. It is not the first time that we say it all boils down to a resistance to unite. So we actually in a state of, you know, collapsing because we refuse to unite. And because we refuse to unite, we put the blame, 20% blame, on those that we give them the advantage to divide us. You know, it sounds insane to say, I refuse to make peace with you, right? But then I blame someone that is actually the one that is saying, peace is not even what you need. But then I need peace. That's how it is. So we are moving up to the step over to start educating ourselves on what is it that the young people should do, what is it that the next generation and even the elders, what is the mistakes of the past, and we keep repeating this mistake. A military takeover, is that the success? Is that what is going to bring a one Africa reform? A military takeover which is being backed up probably by another Western ally, is that a perfect solution? It's just like changing the same you know, on the same pant, but taking out from this pocket and putting out in the same one. So we are ready to roll to get into the action of educating ourselves if we never had that education. Because one of the topics that we know, or one of the challenges that we know, is the miseducation that we went through, believing all the systems worked for the good of the African. But today we are seeing that scramble, and we begin to ask who next and what next, and who does actually Africa belongs to, right? We had some also crazy comments that people are like, yes, but what the heck? All of us come from Africa, so isn't that the issue? But that's another question that we'll talk about when we're talking about culture. We'll be on the series of culture. We're going to get into a series of a lot of issues, not just talking to educate ourselves, but also implementing the process of talking. So we're also going to get a series called the Business and Development series. And in this series, we want to get into innovative projects, right, that are creating impact from the diaspora to the continent and also on the continent. So I want to talk about the skills that diasporans are actually putting out there, because the diaspora puts a lot apart from just remittances. That's what they showcase that we do know. We have diasporans that have skills in the building factories, and they're being also supported by the African Development Bank. Now, that's going to be a very interesting series for those of you that could bring up a mammoth project on how you can get funds through Exim Bank, which is the African Export Bank, or from the African Development Bank, which is also, actually putting wealth on some of those giant projects that create a massive change in employment of people, in brands made by Africans on the continent and exported to their siblings in the diaspora and the world at large. And so that's going to be a very interesting series. And this weekend, I met a correspondent in Belgium. We're actually putting that series together. It's mind-blowing to see the kind of expertise that not just all that we say this academic sellout that we know that are facilitating this neo-colonial imperialism, but these are the ones that have learned exactly the tricks, not just the tricks, but the skills, how American on all these countries develop, and they are bringing that know-how, not just bringing it in terms of talk, but volumes, and creating manufacturing industries that works for Africans to create that job. So that series is going to be interesting, particularly for those of you that want funding and those that have projects. But let me tell you, let me warn you, it's not just a funding, it is a wealth creation, okay, by this supporting institutions. Remember, we said we don't want any foreign, he who gives you money controls you. So if our own people could fund your projects in terms of giving you even a loan to start up those projects, that is already the fact that we're getting there. And I'm so happy that we have this correspondent, and we've been digging into these issues, and we'll be bringing that series on business and development from the diaspora to its continent. So thank you so very much. Yep, we are hosting Al Wahab Farouk live from Ghana, like I said. And you know him when it comes to diplomacy and treating all these kind of agendas about military takeover, why did the conflict, or the root causes of why it is today. So we might blame every other person, but remember today we just learned 70% is on us. And why? Because we resist at every point to unite. That is our cancer. And we need to find a cure. And the cure is just unite and work together, and everything is going to be okay. Africa, unite. As simple as that. That is even danceable. And we move up to that step. So we see ourselves tomorrow. Thank you for all of you that have been here. Thank you for all of you that have also donated and contributed. A lot of people say our videos as too voluminous, and that's why it's so difficult to share and to get subscription and that. So we're going to be chopping all these videos that we've been producing and putting up into what we call a 24/7 live YouTube, Facebook channels, and you can watch all of them at any time. Click and share and subscribe. Okay. So thank you. We see ourselves tomorrow. We move up. NS Parker, you said it. We move up. Thank you. Good night. Tukupomaja. Bye. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.